Welcome, welcome everyone. Glad that you're with us tonight. If you came to learn about Nation Builder and even some other platforms like WordPress for the GOP, then you're in the right place. We have the best digital ideas for you right here. So thank you for being here, and thanks for demonstrating your personal leadership in ensuring that we all deliver good digital content to our GOP districts and campaigns. I know that you have a choice about where you spend your time tonight, and I'm glad you're here with us. You have my personal respect and admiration because we're doing the hard work of providing good digital for the GOP. And let's be frank about it. Sometimes that's a challenge for the GOP to get behind good digital. So let's go ahead and move to our agenda and start with a little bit of housekeeping that we have around our agenda. I have to confess, I may have been guilty of some inconsideration and not showing our visitors, our viewers, a little bit about using the freeconferencecall.com web interface that we use. Sometimes we ask for questions, and we're going to be asking for questions here in just a moment. And my fear is that sometimes you have yourself muted, and I want to show you how to unmute yourself. You won't be able to hear me for a second here because I'm actually going to mute myself. If you're on a PC or a Mac, then you have a little control panel that I'm sliding around on my screen right now. Now, the microphone icon is what controls you're being muted or not. I'm going to mute myself for just a moment. Then unmute myself, and you saw that my microphone turned red and had a slash through it. Now that's both an instrument and a control, and it will show the current state of whether you're muted or not. So currently, my microphone's not red; it doesn't have a slash through it. So feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question. We can keep these. We can keep this call free form. It's small enough. We have less than 100 callers. So it's small enough that we can just go ahead and go free form. So feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions at any given time. If you're on a phone or a tablet, you may need to slide a drawer out from the side, top, or bottom in order to find these controls. So if you look around the edges of your screen, you may find that those controls are there. Feel free to unmute yourself and speak up at any time. We're going to be asking for questions in just a moment. The other thing I want to point out to you is that you can join our email list. There's a link right here on our main home screen at theget.io. Also on the screen is a link to our video archive that's normally up about an hour after our call each Thursday evening. We end the call between 6:30 and 7 California time, so it's usually up by about 7:30 California time. And all of the, I'll just go ahead and click here and go to the archive, and there you can see last week's and the previous weeks. And sometimes I even put lessons in here between our Thursday calls. So looking at the video archive may be something that'll be helpful to you. There's a link back to our NB4GOP homepage right there. Do join our email list. Do also join our Google group. That is a great resource. I'll let you read about Google groups offline. Tell your coworkers, of course, about NB4GOP. Get some other people in on this training. The more people you have trained for Nation Builder, the more people you can admit to your control panel. On a big campaign like the Draft Carson campaign that I was working on, it lasted 2.5 years. We had over 400 people admitted to the dashboard in Nation Builder. That may sound excessive, but that's what Nation Builder is intended for. They have different permission levels built into Nation Builder, and you can, for GOP County, it should be nothing to admit 20 people if that's what you need to carry the load to do the work. By all means, use that capability that's built into Nation Builder. It's no big deal to let people into your control panel, and we'll do a special lessons on that in the near future. As always, check with your bosses before implementing major changes, new themes or something like that. If you have an idea for a new theme, check with your political masters before you go forward with something like that. And lesson suggestions are welcome. If you put in a request, call me or email me. Put in a request, and we'll be glad to prepare a lesson that meets your county's particular. I just went ahead and unmuted everybody. Are there any questions regarding last week's lessons, or any questions at all from the audience at this point? We'll take down your questions now, and we'll address them a little bit later in the lesson. Any questions at all? No questions from anyone? Okay, well, let's go ahead with our lesson. Last week we talked quite a bit about. There were so many questions, and so many questions that were emailed in after the lesson. It made me realize we need to dedicate another week to this particular lesson. So we're not going to go in depth into how to manage the calling in Nation Builder like we did last time, but we are going to talk a little bit about budgeting and how we can plan with budgets with using Nation Builder. Of course, if we're using the calling situation that's built into Nation Builder, if we're in the people screen and we go to the particular list and so forth that we want to call, then we don't really have to worry about budgeting unless we're paying some interns maybe paying some interns by the hours to make some calls. That's a budget figure that's very easy to control. You simply take your budget, and the way we tend to do it is we'll take the budget, we'll divide it by the number of interns we think will do the job, and then divide that by the number of hours we think it'll take to get the calling done, and then we hire that many interns and tell them how much hourly income to expect. That's a good way. The other way, my recommended method, my preferred method is, of course, like I said last week, I really like Callfire. Pardon me. And one of the reasons that I really like Callfire is because, pardon me, one of the reasons I really like Callfire is because you budget and you buy your calling, your number of calls, and commensurate with the budget that you want to spend. So last time I used Nation Builder, it was working out to about a nickel a call, and that doesn't matter if if I want to make 100 calls, that's going to be $5. We're probably not really going to do one that small, but I've done things. I've done call programs, campaigns that were approaching that small. So if we want to contact, say, 1,300 people, like we're doing to recruit some volunteers on one campaign, we know that we need a budget of about $260. So that's pretty easy to get approved. And like I said last week, using Callfire, I normally pitch it to a county chair or to a campaign manager based on, hey, you know what, let's just throw $100 at this. Let's consider it risk capital. We'll get your people trained. We'll get the call page up. We'll put the call page right on your existing website so people don't have to navigate away from your website to use Callfire. And then when we've exhausted the risk budget that we've assigned to this project at $100, $200, whatever it is, we've gone as low as $50 on some campaigns. Then let's take a look at the numbers, and let's take a look at the political results that we got as a result of that budget, and then we'll make the decision as to whether we're going to commit more funds to this project. In every single case where we put it forward that way, the project was accepted. We completed calling on the risk budget, as I call it, and when the risk budget was finished, we take a look at the results. We look at what kind of response we were getting, and in every single case, the campaign decided to dedicate a lot more money to the project because it was getting measurable results. Now, the one other big thing about using Callfire is the fact that it's a remote server actually making the calls. what happens is I give Callfire in one of their screens, I give Callfire my phone number, and Callfire calls me. And I simply sit there and I click next call. There's a next call button on the call screen, and I click next call, next call, next call, and I keep making calls that way. And that way it's the central server at Callfire that's recording the number of phone calls that I actually made. So there's no fudging numbers on the phone calls that were actually made. It's not likely that volunteers are going to fudge numbers and try to say, hey, I called 10 people when they actually called 2. But we have seen it happen on campaigns. So if you're wary of that, Callfire is a really good solution, because if Callfire says that your caller talked to 100 people, it was really 100 people. And Callfire knows how to track that and track it accurately. So Callfire can be a good solution there. Now, last week we gave you some examples on how to search a people database for people that you want to call. Hang on, I'm looking at the chat room here. Yes, Vernon, I am presenting now. Let me just stop, for that question made me wonder, are you all ever able to hear me? Is there anybody on the call who can't hear me, who cannot hear me? Clark, Nellie, Vernon, any of you speak up, let me know if you're hearing me okay.
I'm hearing you fine, man.
Okay, terrific. Thank you, Vernon. We looked at some ways to query for people that we may want to call on a phone bank. There's a few other searches that I want to show you that may be helpful in deciding who you're going to phone bank with. I'm on the Del Norte Republicans side again, and they're wonderful people up there in Del Norte County, California. And they've kindly given me permission to publicly use this information to help train other GOPs. And so if there's anybody on the call from Del Norte, you people are wonderful. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go ahead and do a search for people right now. As usual, people who are familiar with Nation Builder know what I'm clicking on right here. I'm clicking on the funnel icon right here. And I'm going to set up a search for people that I may want to export. And this time we'll actually export the people in preparation to uploading these to Callfire. So I'm going to filter first. My first criteria is going to be regarding phone, and I want to search for people who are callable. So let's look at the numbers between each one of these filter elements. Okay, so just searching for people who are callable, I have 7,395 people. So we could probably call those on a fairly insignificant budget. But let's continue to trim that down, and we'll see. Now here's another big deal. We may only want to call people that we cannot email. So we could add a criteria that we only want to call people who are callable and who are not emailable. Okay, let's filter that. And we still end up with a pretty big number. We've only filtered out about 1,000 people. We're still got 6,616. But the thing is this is going to give us people, basically it's going to give us people who are callable and who we don't have an email address for. But what about the people who are getting our emails but just aren't opening? Those people, I think, should get a phone call too. So let's remove this criteria and let's replace it with another criteria based on something else. And that's going to be a criteria that's based on email blasts. Okay? And I'm going to choose opened email blast from, and now I have to choose a broadcaster. So I'm going to say Del Norte County only has one broadcaster, so I'm going to choose that one broadcaster they have. And I want to change this to has not opened an email blast. And so now I'm going to be including people who are getting our emails okay, but they're just not opening them. And that's probably somebody we want to reach. So it would make real good sense to include these people in a call bank that we may want to have. So I'm going to change that. What the current query says is somebody who is callable and who's not opened an email blast from our only broadcaster in the last number of days. I'm going to make that, you know what, I'm not even going to make that 500. I'm going to make that 800 days. That's going to span almost 3 years. So let me filter on that and see what kind of number I get. Okay, my number went back up to 7,382. So I may want to add one more group row. I may want to add another group row based on some personal information that we may have on the person, and that would be their political party. And the political party is, let's just, instead of saying Republican, let's just say is not Democrat. And that way we have a chance to talk to the Libertarians and the Independents and the Undecideds and the Won't Declare and everything like that. So let's see how that changes our number. Now, I want to point out that, I'll just stop right here real quick and point out that we frequently play with these numbers. We'll run these filters, we'll slice and dice the data using filter choices, and we keep looking at this number right up here, which is the number of the universe that we've selected, and we'll slice and dice the data until we're happy with this number right here. Maybe we need a number that fits our budget. Maybe we're trying to make that number as big as possible, so we reach out to as many people as possible. Sometimes it's based on the method of proposed contact, like a telephone call, which is what we're doing here. So let's go ahead and filter that and see what we end up with. Okay, now if we were budget-based and we don't want to be talking to Democrats, we have a pretty reasonable number right here, 4,348. We could probably call all of these people for well under $1,000. So let's go ahead and figure we're going to export this one. So once I have the result I want here, this 4,348 people, all I have to do is click on my actions list, and right there, up in this upper right-hand corner of the screen, right below my picture, I can select export right there. So I'm going to select export, and I'm going to export them as people. So I click the big yellow button there, and in just a moment, the export is currently pending. Sometimes it takes 5 or 10 minutes to actually export this information. So we'll give it a few minutes here. While we're waiting for this to export, let me unmute everybody and at this point. Any questions? Anybody? Oh, this is going to take a little while. It's saying it's going to take 16 hours to complete. Let's move on. We don't want to wait that long. Okay, I'm going to go back into lecture mode. You can click your own unmute button if you want to. So just pipe up if you have a question. Okay, so we looked at how to make a filter selection there, and we're actually exporting this. And when this export is finished, it won't really take 16 hours, but it is going slow right now. It'll probably actually finish in about half an hour. Then the link that's in this column right here is the link that we would click to actually download the export. I'm going to go ahead and click the previous export and download that. You can see it's downloading right there. And you notice that it's in a CSV file. And here is my computer directory, and there's our file. Let me go ahead and just show you what these files look like. They're a text file that you can actually look at in a text editor. So I'm going to pull a text editor onto the screen here. And this is actually a real database file. It's probably the most widely used interchange format, CSV, which stands for comma separated values. That's what CSV stands for. And it really is a true database file. As you can see, we have values here that are separated by commas. And for instance, here's someone's name in two different forms, followed by their actual email address. Same thing on the next line. Now, this is hard to read, and you shouldn't be expected to read this, but what you should know is you can pull this file up into a spreadsheet if you just want to take a close look at it in an organized fashion, so that all the emails are in the same column and they're not hard to read like this. Or you can actually import a file like this into a real database. I use a database called Postgres on my desktop here. So once we've exported a file like this, we can easily go over to Callfire and we can import the file into our Callfire control panel. I'm not going to actually import the file right now because this particular one is underfunded, but I do want to click on Billing Manager here and show you that I can, log me out. Easy enough to log back in. So I can go to Billing Manager and I can simply click on Add Funds, and there's a credit card dialog there. Allows me to go ahead and add some funds. So, I would, when I'm setting my budget for calling, I would simply take the number of people I want to call. Let's call up a calculator here. What was that? 4,138. And I would divide that by a nickel. And no, it's not going to cost that much. I divided it by too small a number. There we go. Yeah, I said it would cost under $1,000 to call that many people. It's $827.60. So I could just put in, say, $830 here, and you notice that their minimum amount there is $10. There are some people who do a very limited, very quick, hey, we just want to call 500 people. And they can set the budget at whatever you want, or set it to any particular amount and process that fund. The Callfire simply stops calling when you run out of money. You can come back in, add some more money if you're not quite finished with your campaign, but they don't charge by the hour. They don't charge by the minute. They charge by the call, and last time I used it, it was about a nickel a call. That may have changed over the last couple of years. Been a couple of years since I used it. But if you're going to be doing this, you're probably going to be getting a pro to help you. Just tell the pro to check the prices first. Let me stop right now. And any questions at this point? Any questions at all? Okay, and you see that even though it said that this export was going to take 16 hours, it's actually done right now, so that export didn't take as long as we thought it was going to. I need to flip back to my agenda and see where I am. But yeah, one thing we probably should talk about is, when you're working with a county chair or when you're working with a candidate, try to attend some of their events. And before you attend the first event that you're going to attend for that candidate, tell the candidate or the county chair that it's really, really important that they ask for online digital participation from the podium, when they're standing in front of an audience. It's important for them to ask for that. And it's also important, now this is especially important for a county, recognize your digital people at least once a quarter. And yeah, maybe you need to make an arrangement for that. Call your digital crew and say, hey, this quarter, I'd really like for you to be at this month's meeting because we'd like to recognize you. We want you to stand up and take a round of applause from everybody at the committee meeting. These are normally public meetings, and it's a good way to recognize your digital crew. And you and I know that the digital crew doesn't do what they do for kudos or for public acknowledgement, but it really helps. It really helps. Part of what you're doing here is you want to recruit new people. And it's much easier to get new people involved when they see the people already doing the job receiving proper public acknowledgement and recognition for the job that they're already doing. So yeah, the people that are in the job will probably tell you, no, you don't need to recognize me. I don't want to drive all the way over there on Saturday morning. Recognize them anyway. If you have to, send out a mass email whose express purpose is just thanking your people, because that makes it so much easier to get new people involved in the job and in the task, and that can go a long ways for you. Let's see here. We've just about reached the end of our time. Let me stop and one question. Hang on here. Any questions at this point? Anybody? Vernon? Nellie? Vernon, are you willing to speak up for a minute? Well, we do have a VIP on tonight's call, Vernon Robinson, who is National Political Director for the Draft Carson campaign. It kind of sounded like he's probably... So, if there's no questions, we'll go ahead and draw tonight's call to a close. Once again, I want to thank everybody for being on the call. I think it's wonderful that we're working together to try to improve the digital for all the GOP counties, and we're glad to have you on the call. Be sure and tell your other coworkers, especially the ones involved in digital, about our call. Invite them to join us. And if you have a victory, if you have something, you had a mass mailing that got a good response, or some other type of victory that happened online, you want to let us know about it, you want to let your digital people in the other counties know about it, we're glad to have you on and let you tell us something about your victory online. So with that, I want to thank everybody for having been on the call. The recording of this call will be online in probably about half an hour. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, and thanks for being here.